Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I am sharing my presentation slides. All of you see these slides? Just write in the chat box. Okay. So let us start today's class. And today we are going to discuss an important topic of Unit 1, which is circular flow of economic activity. The first, the introduction. So basically, it means the continual circular movement of money and goods in the economy. So the concept of circular flow of income is a simplification which attempts to illustrate flow of money and goods from household to business enterprise and back to household. So basically, it's a circular flow of money and goods. So the circular flow of economic activity is a model showing the basic economic relationship within a market economy. So goods and services flow through the economy in one direction while money flows in the opposite direction. So let us discuss this concept in detail in the next slides. So you need to remember this, the goods and service flows in one direction whereas the money flows in the opposite direction. So moving to the next slide, as you can see from the figure, from this diagram, there are in this diagram there are basically three components of economy. One is the household, or you can say the consumers. The second is the business, which is known as the firms, and the third is the government. So as you can see from the diagram, from the household or from the consumers, the they provide the labors to the businesses for doing and businesses need the laborers for doing the job. So you can see the arrows from in the three components, and from the business provides the goods and services to the consumers. You can see the arrow here. The business provides the goods and services to the consumers or the household, and in the same way, the goods and the business provides the taxes to the government, and in the same way the consumers provide the taxes, the income tax to the government, and the government provide the services or the infrastructure to the businesses, and in the same way the government gives the services to the consumer. So this flow of diagram, which is known as the circular flow of activity, and this is known as the circular flow of economic activity, because our economy depends on these three factors mainly in our country. So one is the consumer, the second is the business or the businesses or the firms who produces the product or sells the product, and the third is the government, which provide the infrastructure for the consumer and the business to interact, and they also need the taxes from the consumer and the businesses, uh, and in return the government provide the services to the consumer as well as the businesses. So this is the main diagram. So all of you understand this diagram? Just write in the chat box. Okay. So moving to the next slide. So what is circular flow model? So basically the circular flow model demonstrate how money moves through society. Actually in the last diagram we see that the money is transferred from one component to the other, and in return the money also goes through the circular flow. So it basically demonstrates how money moves through the society. So money flows from producers to workers as wages and flows back to the producer as payment for products from the consumers. So in short, an economy is an endless circular flow of money. So that is the basic form of the model, but actual money flows are much more complicated than this. So economists have added in more factors to better depict complex modern economies. So these factors are the components of national gross domestic product, which is known as the GDP, or national income. So national income is also calculated from the GDP. For that reason, the model is also referred to as the circular flow of income model. So, the circular flow of economic activity model is also known as the circular flow of income model. So, moving to the next slide. So as you can see much more clearly from the diagram that these are the factors or the components of the circular flow. So one is the individual, other is the business. Here only two components are there. One is consumers or individual and the other is businesses or firms. So you can see from the diagram that from the individual they provide the land, capital, labor, entrepreneurship to the from the market to the businesses. And the market connects the individual and the businesses, because from the market the individual or the consumers buy the product which ultimately sell by the businesses in order to earn profit. So you can see from the diagram that from the market the you can see the direction in the diagram is very important, because the factor market, you can see from the factor market the income from resources are being gone to the individual. In the same way, from the business, payment and resources are being given to the market, and ultimately income from resources are there. In the same way, businesses provide the goods and services to the consumers with the use of through the product market. You can see, and the consumer is spending money to buy these products. You can see. So this is the circular flow of model, and in this circular flow model, there are two components. One is the individual, and the other is the business or the firms. So in this way, the circular flow model works. All of you understand it? Shall we proceed further? Just write in the chat box. Basically there are two markets. One is the product market and the other is the factor market. But, as you can see, the factor market, you can take an example of the share market is considered as the factor market, in which the sell and the product of the shares of the company are been done in the share market. So it is basically an example of the factor market. In the product market, where actually the product is or product of the communities are sold by the companies, and it is been purchased by the individual or consumers. So there are two markets. One is the factor and the other is the product markets. So proceed to the next slide. So understanding the circular flow model. So the circular flow model starts with the household sector or the consumer sector that engages in consumption spending, because all the consumer needs product for their livelihood, and the business sector that produces the goods. So two more sectors should also be included in the circular flow of income, and the other these two factors are the government sector, and the next is the foreign trade sector. So we will discuss these sector in detail in the next slides. So the government, basically here we can find there are four sectors for the circular flow of motion of model. One is the household sector, second is the business sector, third is the government sector, and the fourth is the foreign trade sector. So the government injects money into the circle through government spending, which is denoted as G, on programs such as social security and national parks administration, etc. So as government provide the infrastructure or the services to the consumer or and the business sectors. So money also flows in the circle through export, which bring in cash from foreign buyers. So in case of foreign trade sector, so money will get to and fro from the export and uh, import of the businesses. In addition, businesses that invest money to purchase capital stocks contribute to the flow of money into the economy. So by this, you can understand that the circular flow model works. So let us discuss each of these factors one by one. So first is the household or the consumer. Avinash Darora, what is your problem? Mute your microphone.
Sorry, sir.
So first component is the household. So household are consumers. They may be single individuals or group of consumers taking a joint decision regarding consumption. So you can also take an example of your family or yourself. You can be a single individual who can buy a product from the market, or your family needs some products which are based on the joint decision. So they may also be families. Their ultimate aim is to satisfy the wants of their members with their limited budgets. So household are the owners of factors of production like land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship ability. So all the consumers uh, have these factors like land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So they sell the services of these factors and receive income in return in the form of rents, wages, and interest and profit respectively. So the consumer or the household have these properties. All the consumers needs the products for their livelihood, and in order to purchase those products, uh, they need to spend money in the market. So this is a household is or the consumers is the very important factor of the economy. So the next factor is the firm or the businesses. So the term firm is used interchangeably with the term producer in economics. So because these firms produces the product, so the decision to manufacture goods and services is taken by the firm. For this purpose, it employs factors of production and makes payment to their owners. So basically, the factor of manufacturing the goods and services is depend on the demand of that particular product. As the demand of that particular product is more, so the supply of that product will be more, or the manufacturing of that product will be more from the company. So just as household consumer goods and services to satisfy their wants, similarly, firms produce goods and services to make profit, and the ultimate aim of the firm or a business is to make profit. The term firm includes joint stock companies like DCM, Tisco, etc. So public enterprises like IOC, STC, etc. So the firm also includes the product market as well as uh, the financial market, etc. So partnership concerns cooperative societies and even small and big trading shops which do not manufacture the commodities they sell. So all comes under the firm or the businesses. Whether it may be small or big, whether it can be purchased, whether it can be manufactured the product, or it can only a retail shop. So all these are making profit from the consumer. So they are the part of the firm or the business. So the firm or the business is the other component of the economic model, which is basically called as the second component of the economic model, because it depends on the demand of the consumers. As the demand of that product increases, so the supply or the manufacturing of that product will be increases. So now we discuss the third component, which is the government. So the government plays a key role in all types of economic systems. So basically, there are three types of economic system. One is the capitalist system, second is the socialist system, and the third is the combination of capitalist and socialist system. So in a capitalist system, the government does not interfere. It simply establishes and protects property rights. So it sets standards for weights and measures and the monetary system. So in some countries, capitalist economy is there, and in some countries, the socialist economy is there. So in a socialist economy, the role of the government is very extensive. So it owns and regulates the entire production and consumption processes of the economy and fixes prices of goods and service. So in a socialist economy, the government is holding the major part of the manufacturing of the goods and services, and it also fixes the price of the goods and services as well. But the third is the mixed economy, and in the mixed economy, it is a combination of capitalist and socialist economy. So the government strengthens the market system. So some good points are taken from the capitalist economy, and some points are taken from the socialist economy. So that considers the mixed economy. So actually, this we are not getting it in much more detail, because this is not the major topic of in your syllabus. So all of you understand it. Just write in the chat box so that we can proceed further. So these are the three important components: the consumer or the household, then the firms or the businesses, and the third is the government. So as you understand these components, so there are some models which are based on these components, and we will discuss these models in detail in the next slides. So all of you understand it? Just write in the chat box. Achal Sharma, have you understood it? Achal
Yes,
Sharma,
sir.
have you understood the concept?
Yes, sir.
So, so you, so why are you not writing in the chat box?
Clear.
I am sharing all the slides to you in the Google Classroom code of MEFA. But all your classmates are not there in the Google Classroom code. Only half of the students are there. So moving to the next slide. So main activities of economy. So the production, consumption, and exchange are the three main activities of economy. So basically, the production, consumption are dependent on each other, and the exchange, which is based on the exchange of money from one component to the next component. So consumption and production are flows which operate simultaneously and are interrelated and interdependent as well. So production leads to consumption, and consumption necessitates production. So as we already know that demand and supply are related to each other. So in other words, production is the is a means beginning, and consumption is the end of all economic activities. So both production and consumption depend upon the exchange, but both production and consumption depends on the money, so which is termed as the exchange. So exchange of money from one component to the other component. So thus these two flows are interrelated and interdependent through exchange. So basically the three main activities of economy are production, consumption, and exchange. So moving to the next slide. The outflows of cash. So as the money is injected into the economy, or the money is transferred in the economy, so money is withdrawn or leaked through various means. So these are the means. So tax imposed by government reduces the flow of income in the market. So one factor is tax. Second is the money paid to foreign companies for imports also constitute a leakage. So basically, the leakage or the withdrawn or the shortage of money is based on these factors. First is the taxes imposed by the government. Second, the money paid by the foreign companies for the imports, and the third is savings by businesses that otherwise would have been put to use, are a decrease in the circular flow of economy's income. So these are the three factors by which the shortage of money are there in the market or in the economy. So a government calculates its gross national income by tracking all of these injections or the insertion of money into the circular flow of income and the withdrawal from it. So as you know that whenever the shortage of money is in the market or in the economy, basically, as you know, in the time of the corona period initially, so the government taken some measures or given special packages to the consumer or the special classes in order to improve their livelihood, and also in order to to make much more money, or the liquidity of in order to increase the liquidity of money in the market, or the economy. So basically the government task is to basically to control the flow of money in the economy and in the or in the market. So this is the outflows of cash. So all of you understand it? Just write in the chat box. Okay. So moving to the next slide. So adding up the factors. So basically the circular flow of income for a nation is said to be balanced when withdrawals equals injection. So whatever money is inserted or whatever money is transferred in the market is basically returned from the market. So the levels of injection is the sum of government spending, exports, and investments. So these are the basically the levels of injection or the money inserted in the market, which is the sum total of this government spending, exports, and investments. The level of leakages or withdrawals uh, is the sum of taxations, imports, and savings. So these are the money which get back to the government in the form of the consumer and business pay their taxes to the government. The import duties are being given from the foreign companies to the government, and their savings is also returned to the government. So when you can see, I am abbreviated these uh, these factors uh, into the symbols. So when G means government is spending plus exports and plus investment is greater than the the level of withdrawals, then the level of national income or the GDP will increase. And when the total leakage is greater than the total injected money into the market, the surplus flow, the national income will decrease. So in order to increase the national income, the level of injection is much more in order to run the market or the economy smoothly, the level of injection will be much more. So by doing this, the level of national income or the GDP will increase, and all the government task is basically to increase the GDP, the national income of the country. So these are the factors, and if these factors, if you can see, if G plus H plus I is greater than T plus M plus S, then the national income or the GDP will increase, and if this is less than, then the national income will decrease. So these are the factors on which the national income or the GDP will depend. So moving to the next slide, and this is very important slide. So how we can calculate the GDP of a country. So the GDP or the gross domestic product is calculated as, so this is the formula. Basically the formula is written as here, but this is the abbreviated form. So whenever you asked a question about the GDP, you need to also explain what the meaning of C, what the meaning of G, what is the meaning of I. So this is there. So GDP is calculated as consumer spending, which is being abbreviated as C. Then government spending, then business investment, and after that the sum of export is being abbreviated as X minus the sum of imports, which is abbreviated as M. So if we calculate all these factors, so this is the formula of calculation of GDP, and by using this formula we can calculate the GDP of the country. So basically you can also remember that the GDP of the our country uh, often calculated in the quarterly basis. So in a year there are 4 quarters are there of 3 months each. So GDP will be calculated in a quarterly basis. So if businesses decided to produce less, it would lead to a reduction in household spending and causes a decrease in GDP. So these are the two factors by which the GDP will decrease. So if businesses produces less, then surely the consumer will get less percentage of the goods and services, and it ultimately decrease the flow of money in the market. So it ultimately decreases the GDP. Or if the consumer decided to spend less, which is in the case of corona um, pandemic. So if household or the consumer decided to spend less, it would lead to a reduction in business production, also causing a decrease in the GDP. So that's why, due to these factors, in corona pandemic, the money flow in the market is reduced drastically, and due to this, many of the laborers or the many of the company employees loses their job because the flow of money drastically reduces. So this is the main factor. And it ultimately, because actually the GDP is based on the on all these factors, and if there is any imbalance in these factors, then ultimately it leads to some deterioration uh, in the components, like the people are getting less goods and services from the market, the people are losing their job. So these type of things happens in the market. So in order to balance this, we need to balance all these factors, like consumer spending, government spending, and there is a mechanism uh, which controls these factors. So government task is basically uh, to manage the these components, like to manage the demand and supply of the product, to uh, to manage that there will not be a lack of, or the liquidity, there is lack of money in the market. So these are the factors. So basically the GDP is calculated by this formula. So moving on to the next slide. So now we are going to discuss the important important measures, like the circular flow in two sector economy. So we will going to study these sectors, the two sector, then the three sector, and then the four sector of economy. So as you can see from the diagram, in the two sector economy there are only two components. One is the household, or the consumers, and the second sector is the firms and the business. So you can see, in a simplified economy with only two types of economic agents. So one is the household or the consumer, and the other is the business firms. So the circular flow of economic activities flows between these two sectors only. So as you can see in the diagram, uh, from the household, they provide the services, or the labor task in the business or the firms, which is being shown here. And in the same way, the firms provide the goods and services to the households, and the households then pay then buy these goods and services by expenditure, by 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 spending some money in order to buy goods and services from the market, and the factor income in, and in lieu of this, the firms and the businesses give salary to the laborers or the employees in their company. So these are the four factors. You need to basically remember the arrows in this diagram, because the arrow is very important here. So the circular flow in two sector economy is basically dependent on household and firms. So all of you understand it? Just write in the chat box. So these are the two sector economy diagram. Okay. So proceeding to the next slide. So whatever is shown in the diagram is explained here. So consumer or household own all the factors of productions like land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, which are also called productive resources. They sell them to firms for producing goods and services. And in a modern economy, exchange takes place through financial flows, because in order to buy the goods and services, the consumer have to spend money, and these money has been returned back if they are working as an employee in those companies, which move in the reverse direction in the real flow. The purchase of goods and services in the product market by consumer is their consumption expenditure, which becomes the revenue of the firm. So these are all points which we discussed earlier. So moving to the next slide. So basically, this is the summary of two sector economy. So in the simple two sector circular flow of income model, the state of equilibrium is defined as a situation in which there is no tendency for the levels of income, like by an expenditure and output to change. So all these factors will become equal. So this when all these factors become equal, then state of equilibrium is reached. So this means that expenditure of buyer household becomes income for the sellers firms. So the firms then spend this income on factors of production such as labor, capital, and raw material, transferring their income to the factor owners. So the factor owners spend this income on goods, which leads to the circular flow of income. So in the two sector economy model, the circular motion or the flow or the exchange of money goes from the household or consumers to the business and firms only. So this is how the exchange of money is transferred through these sectors. So moving to the next slide, in the next slide we will going to discuss the three sector economy. So in the three sector economy, you can see from the diagram, a third sector is also included, which is the government sector. So household or consumer is the first sector, firms and business is the second sector, and government is the third sector. So now that the government is taking charge or interacting the household and or the consumer and the firms and business in this way. As you can see here, the government is taking the taxes to the from the household and businesses, and also from the firms and the firms and the businesses. In the same way, there are leakages are there, and there is injection. So injections of money from the firms and businesses are gone. The government injections or the insertion of money from the government in the businesses, and in the same way there is leakages of money or withdrawal of money from the government to the consumer. So this is the basically in the two sector, if we add the government sector, So then it becomes the three sector economic model. So the third sector is the government sector, and it is included in the three sector economic model. So let us discuss this three sector in much more detail in the next slide. So this is the circular flow of three sector economic model. As we already see in the diagram. So here first state the circular flow between the household sector and the government sector. So so taxes in the form of personal income taxes and commodities taxes paid by the household sector are outflows or leakage from the circular flow. So basically the the consumers, or you can say the households, are basically pay taxes to the government. So but the government purchases the services of the household, makes transfer payment in the form of old age pensions, unemployment relief, sickness benefits. These are our benefits given by the government to the household or the consumers, etc., and also spend on them to provide certain social services like education, health, housing, water, paths, and other facilities are provided from the government to the consumers or the households. They, so as such expenditures by the government are inflows, injections into the circular flow. So so these type of so basically the taxes are being uh, so taxes are being paid from the household and the consumer. In lieu of taking the taxes, the government provided education, health, housing, water, and other facilities to the consumers. So the next take the circular flow between the business sector and the government sector. So all types of taxes paid by the business sector to the government are leakages from the circular flow. So on the other hand, the government purchases all its requirements of goods of all types from the business sectors, gives subsidies, and makes transfer payment to firms in order to encourage their productions. So these government expenditures are injections into the circular flow. So basically, the business sector also gives the government taxes, but on the other hand, the government provides subsidies and other facilities to the businesses in order uh, to manufacture their products and sell in the country. So this is the three sector economic model. All of you understand it? Just write in the chat box. It was only 5 minutes are left for the class. All of you understand it? Just write in the chat box. Okay. So this is a much more clearer diagram in order to understand the three sector economy. One is the household, second is the business and firm, and the third is the government. You can and see the arrows which are taking place in this diagram in order to understand that diagram in a much more uh, better manner. Now, the summary of three sector economy. So it includes household sector, producing sector or the business sector, and the government sector. So it will study a circular flow income in these sectors, excluding the rest of the world, that is closed economic system. So basically the three sector economic system is also called as the closed economic system because the closed word means this economic system is basically deal in the country itself, and not we are providing any foreign trade in this uh, in this sector economy. So the government, household, or the consumer and the business all are the part of a country itself. So it is a closed economic system. So here flow from household sector and producing sector to government sector are in the form of taxes. The income received from the government sector flows to producing and household sectors in the form of payments for government purchases of goods and services, as well as payment of subsidies and transfer payments. So as the government provides the subsidies and basic benefit, basic infrastructure for the companies to work and sell their products. So every payment has a receipt in response of it, by which aggregate expenditure of an economy becomes identical to aggregate income and makes the circular flow and unending. So basically, aggregation means we need to sum up all the expenditures and all the money here to get the aggregate money. So just the last slide is there. The circular flow in a fourth sector economy. So the circular flow has been shown in the case is of closed economy up till now. The three sector is also called as closed economy, but the actual economy is an open economy when foreign trade plays an important role. When we include the foreign trade as well in the economy, then it becomes the open economy. So exports are an injection or inflows into the circular flow of money. On the other hand, imports are the leakages from the circular flow. So they are expenditures incurred by the household sector to purchase goods from the foreign countries. So so when we insert the foreign trade in the sector, so it becomes the four sector economy. So moving to the next slide. So this is the diagram, or this is the figure of the four sector economy. Here you can see there are four factors. One is the household, second is the firm, third